defending your religious freedom. Here is Dr. Chaps.
I'm Dr. Chaps. We're here in Birmingham, Alabama, where Roy Moore, candidate for U.S. Senate, is under fire. There is a press conference today, and my dear friend Alan Keyes is going to give you a preview of his remarks. Dr. Keyes, what's going on in Alabama?
What's going on in Alabama, I think, is not what it's being presented at. It's not just a matter of a party establishment that I think has proved itself to be unrepresentative and deeply corrupt, going after a good and decent man who has spent his life championing the cause of the Constitution, of decent liberty, and of the God-based foundation of all our liberties and rights. It's not just about that, because people are forgetting the way our representatives are treated has an implication for the way we are to be treated. So if they look at Roy Moore and say, because you're running for office, there's no presumption of innocence, there's no due process. Any accuser that comes forward, they must be taken at their word, at face value, no investigation, no trial whatsoever, you will be condemned.
So we don't want to...
They're condemning us because if they can abuse our representative, it's just like the kings of old. If they can abuse the representative, they can abuse the king.
So allegations are not enough. There's been this mantra in the mainstream media, well, you're innocent until proven guilty unless you're running for public office. Then you're guilty right away.
But that makes no sense. Precisely because you are running for public office, it is even more important to prevent people from being able to assassinate your character with lies. It doesn't matter that they are using this or that weapon. In this particular case, the weapon of lies that defame your moral character. The end result is an ability, without let or hindrance or interference, to destroy. Basically, I use the word assassinate advisedly, to take out of the picture the one who has been chosen by the people to represent them. And to do it by means that have no lawful basis. Because if you can't examine charges to see whether they are not true or whether they are true, if you can't do that, then why should you proceed to execution? Execution meaning bar this person from office. Well, to bar an American citizen from serving in office if duly elected is in fact one of the greatest traducing moments, corrupting moments, destroying moments you can imagine for the Constitution of the United States.
So you're talking about the possibility that if Roy Moore is elected on 12 December, that Mitch McConnell has threatened to not seat him, or Cory Gardner, my senator from Colorado, has threatened to expel him before he ever becomes a U.S. senator. Is that constitutionally possible? It's been done in 1969. There was a congressman who was expelled. But like you say, doesn't that violate what our founding fathers believed in?
Well, I think it violates a number of things. In the first instance, it will affirm and allow them to get away with this violation of due process. I think the first thing we have to do is repudiate this notion that when people are running for office, they don't get the same legal protections as ordinary citizens, because they are ordinary citizens, chosen by other ordinary citizens to represent them in the competition for office. You don't get to strip an ordinary citizen of constitutional protection in the very most important moment of their citizen life, when other citizens have lifted them up to compete for office. If you hand that instrument of character assassination by lies, let's get it straight, because if you're not looking to tell whether it's a truth or a lie, then you're allowing lies to win. And you really think? I mean, you don't even have to examine the evidence that's come forward here, which I think is flimsy and not even evidence.
You have looked at that?
I have looked at it thoroughly. And the simple fact of the matter is, the first Washington Post article depended on a fallacy. The fallacy being that there were multiple witnesses who corroborated a criminal act. The three witnesses who supposedly corroborated the criminal act insisted that not only was there no crime committed, there wasn't even any misconduct or any sign of an intention of any misconduct.
Nor are witnesses.
Even if Their testimony is, as I believe, something that was either, I'm not necessarily saying these young ladies lied or these women lied. I am saying that if you're sitting down with somebody from the Washington Post and they start asking you leading questions, one of those questions might be, well, do you think he was interested in dating you? Right? And you say, well, I don't know, and so forth. And before you know it, I had noticed a line in there where they said that supposedly at the time interest was flattering, but later it troubled me. And I said, yeah, during that interview with the Washington Post, they told you how troubling it was, and you picked up on that. The reason that's important is because that's why we have due process. In a courtroom, if a lawyer tries to feed somebody and lead them in the direction of a certain story, the defense can get up and say, objection, Your Honor, is leading the witness. And that's going to be cut out of the record. It's not allowed. So we're suddenly going to say no due process of law during our elections. You can treat our chosen candidates like what? As if they were not citizens. No, as if they were not persons. What does that mean, y'all? We're going to allow the people we choose to be candidates to be stripped of their personhood. The last time that happened in the Supreme Court of the United States, the result has been a Holocaust that has claimed the lives of millions upon millions of unborn children.
You're talking about Roe versus Wade and the abortion Holocaust.
Roe versus Wade, because it was said in that decision that if that individual is a person, then they must be accorded all the rights and respect that is due to a person. That was admitted. Well, here we are, faced with people who want to strip our chosen candidates. And even if McConnell gets his arrogant way, his arrogant, unconstitutional, anti-American way, they will want to strip an elected senator of office on the basis of allegations not given any true scrutiny and certainly not subject to due process of law. What does that mean? It means that we're going to let them strip somebody of their personhood, treat them as if they were not human beings entitled to respect for their God-endowed rights. We're going to let that happen just because it's an election. So in every election, the people who have the power to control the media, to slander people widely, big megaphones that you can't compete with, if they can take and have taken all those things over, we're then going to let those people strip away the personhood of our representatives, treat them as if they're not even human beings entitled to respect for their basic rights, so that they can assassinate their character and remove them from the competition. That spells the end of true elections in this country. They're going to take us from being the United States of America to being the United Socialist Republic of the old Soviet Union, where their constitution was a sham and their rights were non-existent.
The voters are the sovereign, and yet there's been this call by people like Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan that no, we have the power and we're going to decide. They even asked President Trump and he refused, thankfully. They asked him to weigh in and say Roy Moore should be removed from the ballot. He shouldn't even be allowed when he's already been appointed. He won the nomination. Should the people have that power, or is there any constitutional limit on what currently elected officials can do?
Well, I'll reiterate what I just said. They have no such power. They are claiming that power now, and I'll be clear about this because I've been trying to get people to see this for a long time. They're trying to claim that power now because we've allowed the development of a corrupt, sham party system that is inconsistent with and hostile to the constitutional self-government of the American people. A party system that says this party belongs to the bosses, when the Constitution says that politics is the responsibility of the people of the United States. And so we should never have let it happen. They have created this, what is a party system anyway? Is it a public institution or a private institution?
It's private.
If it's a private institution subject to the whims of these oligarchs, then the individuals who appear on the ballot are not appearing as individuals. Go back and read what the founders had to say. and you read the Constitution,
They didn't want political
nothing
parties.
in the Constitution makes any mention whatsoever of parties.
Right.
When people are placed on the ballot, regardless of the process that places them there, they are on that ballot as individuals. And party bosses and government this is and that have no right whatsoever to remove them. Now, constitutionally, if they can get these lies enough traction, if Roy Moore is elected to the U.S. Senate, they can try, if they want to find the 2/3 vote in the Senate by which they could expel him, okay, on the basis of. But I assume that the people of the United States would have awakened by then, and that they would realize that that consideration had better be conducted like a trial, where the witness gets a chance to have a good advocate, examine all the evidence, nothing withheld, look at it, scrutinize it, and prepare the proper defense of an innocent person. See? Made even more innocent, that is intending to do no harm, by the verification of the jury in Alabama that refused to act as judge, jury, and executioner of these false and villainous accusations.
So it would require a 2/3 vote of the Senate, kind of like an impeachment trial. Bill Clinton was never removed because he couldn't get 2/3 of the Democrats to remove him. Would that be the same process they might
that's what's
try to follow?
specified in the well, that's what's specified in the rules of the Senate. Yes.
So, Dr. Keyes, thank you for your time, and final remarks here. How do you feel emotionally about your friend Roy Moore? You've stood with him for years. You've known him over a decade. What about the man?
Well, I'll put it this way. The most vitally important truths, the ones that are the basis for everything that was uniquely important historically for the United States, the understanding that it was a country that was for the first time going to prove that people at large, ordinary folks who were willing to live decent lives and take responsibility for themselves, family, children, community, that those folks could in fact rightly govern their own country. It did not require dictators and despots and arrogant oligarchs and nobility, because the premise that we are all equally responsible to God for our conduct, all equally to be guided by His disposition of will in the natural laws that decide what are our bodies, how the heavens will operate, how the planets will move, also decide the moral choices of human beings. And when we accord our actions and activities with those choices of God, when you interfere with us, you interfere with Him. This country was founded on that understanding, and this is the understanding that they mean to throw on the trash heap of history. So this Alabama election is not just about the upstanding and courageous stand that Roy Moore has taken for the very God-centered premise that I just articulated. It's about whether or not the American people are going to allow a few corrupt oligarchs to rip that premise out of the Constitution and soul of the United States, and thereby assassinate the character of our whole country.
I'm Dr. Chaps, and this is obviously about a lot more than Judge Roy Moore. This is about the Constitution and the fabric of American democracy. Alan, thank you for coming on our program.
Thank you for having me.